In the vast landscape of American animated television, Family Guy stands as a singular, polarizing, and culturally ineradicable monument. Since its debut in 1919, its unique comedic voice, a frenetic, reference-laden, and gleefully amoral onslaught to its critics, it represents the nadir of lowbrow humor, random, crass, and narratively bankrupt. To its fans, it is a masterclass in a specific, hyperkinetic style of comedy that operates on a logic all its own. But beyond questions of taste lies a more compelling inquiry. How does it work? What are the cognitive, cultural, and comedic mechanisms that make a Family Guy joke land, even when it seemingly defies all traditional rules of setup and punchline? This essay posits that Family Guy's humor is not random, but rather a complex, engineered system. It is a comedic laboratory that operates on distinct scientific principles drawn from psychology, neuroscience, media theory, and cultural studies. By deconstructing its signature devices, the cutaway gag, the non sequitur, the pop cultural deep cut, and its relentless meta-commentary, we can uncover a sophisticated architecture of laughter. The show functions as a neurological stress test, a cultural barometer, and a deconstruction of the sitcom form itself. To understand the science behind Family Guy jokes is to understand a significant shift in 21st century comedy, the move from narrative-driven humor to associative, referential, and deeply self-aware comedic fragmentation. At the heart of Family Guy's comedic identity is the non sequitur, a conclusion or statement that does not logically follow from the previous argument or context. In neuroscience, humor is often understood through the incongruity resolution theory. The model suggests that laughter arises when we perceive an incongruity between a concept and the real-world object it references, and then successfully resolve that incongruity. A classic joke sets up an expectation and delivers a surprising yet logically consistent twist that our brains enjoy solving. Family Guy deliberately short-circuits this model. It creates the incongruity but often refuses to offer a tidy resolution. Instead, it leans into the absurdity, creating a state of sustained cognitive dissonance. Consider a typical cutaway. Peter Griffin recalls a time he was at the library and a man screamed, "Hey! I'm trying to read here," before cutting to a scene of the same man on a screaming date with the phrase, "read here." The punchline isn't a logical resolution to trying to read, it's a literal, absurdist visualization of the phrase, creating a new, unrelated incongruity. Our brain, seeking pattern recognition, scrambles to connect the dots, finds no logical pathway, and the resulting release often manifests as laughter at the sheer audacity of the illogic. This triggers a different neurological pathway than traditional humor. It may rely more heavily on the surprise element, activating the amygdala and prefrontal cortex with unexpected stimuli, followed by the relief and reward signals when we accept the joke's rule set. In Family Guy's universe, verbal phrases become literal and societal norms don't apply. The laughter is less about getting it in a logical sense and more about submitting to the show's anarchic dream logic. It's a comedy of defeated expectation, where the defeat itself is the punchline. The cutaway gag is Family Guy's most iconic and controversial device. Structurally, it is a radical departure from sitcom norms. Traditional sitcoms and even contemporaries like The Simpsons early on build humor within a narrative framework. Jokes serve character or plot. The cutaway, however, is a narrative digression, a hyperlink to a completely unrelated scene. Scientifically, this exploits our brain's associative memory networks. The dialogue, "This is worse than the time I," acts as a retrieval cue. But instead of accessing a relevant memory, it accesses a comedic non-memory, a fabricated absurdity. This creates a jarring dissociative effect. The narrative timeline is shattered. The show's pacing becomes a series of comedic spikes, abandoning traditional rising action or character development for immediate, unsustainable gratification. From a media theory perspective, the cutaway is a pure product of the MTV/remote control generation. It operates on a logic of channel surfing, where attention is fragmented and the next bit is always more compelling than sustained engagement. Each cutaway is a self-contained sketch, lasting 1020 seconds, mimicking the pace of online videos and memes long before that became the dominant cultural currency. It trains the viewer to expect constant, unrelated stimulation, rewarding short attention spans. The comedy comes not just from the content of the gag, but from the brazenness of the interruption, a meta-joke on the sitcom form's inability to hold our focus. Family Guy's universe is a sprawling, haphazard archive of late 20th century American pop culture. Its jokes are dense with references to forgotten sitcoms, jingles, celebrity cameos, toy commercials, and B-list movies. This is more than mere remembering. It's a form of cultural mining. The show operates on a two-tiered referential system. The specific recall, a joke referencing the precise plot of Police Academy 4 or the actor who played Cousin Oliver on The Brady Bunch. This generates laughter through recognition, a tiny dopamine hit of competence for a small subset of the audience who shares that obscure knowledge. It creates in-groups and rewards cultural literacy, however trivial. The vague aura of familiarity. More often the reference is to a type of thing, the aesthetic of an 80s PSA, the tone of a Family Tie storyline, the melody of a commercial jingle. Even if you don't know the exact source, you recognize the cultural template. The brain identifies the pattern, this feels like something from my childhood, and finds comfort and humor in the caricature. This transforms the show into a living database comedy. As media theorist Stephen Chavarot notes, we live in an era of database consumption, where narratives are less important than the cataloguing and recombining of elements from a shared cultural stockpile. Family Guy doesn't just tell stories, it performs data retrieval and recombination. A joke might crossbreed The Godfather with Scooby-Doo or Freud with The Happy Days. The humour stems from the bizarre yet strangely apt collision of these disparate data points, creating new, often surreal connections in our neural networks of memory. A significant portion of Family Guy's humour is deliberately transgressive, targeting religion, disability, ethnicity, sexual trauma, and societal tragedies. Analysing this requires moving beyond neurology into social psychology, particularly the superiority theory of humour traceable to Plato and Hobbes, which posits that we laugh at the misfortunes or inferiority of others, asserting our own superiority. Family Guy applies this theory with a mechanised democratic viciousness. No one is spared. The disabled, Joe, the obese, Peter, the black, Cleveland, the Jewish Mort, the women, Lois Meg, the British, every British character. Crucially, it does this from a position of apparent moral vacuum. The show refuses to grant its characters, or by extension, its writers, a moral high ground. Peter is an idiot. Stewie is a megalomaniacal infant. Brian is a pretentious failure. Their prejudices and insults are presented as flaws, not wisdom. This creates a complex comedic shield. The offence is so widespread and so blatantly tied to character flaws that it often, though not always, deflects accusations of genuine bigotry. The science here is in desensitization through overload and contextual absurdity. A racist joke delivered by a man who, moments later, will be hit in the head with a frying pan and sing a show tune about hemorrhoids exists in a realm of such profound silliness that its real-world sting can be neutralized for many viewers. The joke is on the character's stupidity for saying it and on the audience's own knowledge of the taboo. It tests the boundaries of the benign violation theory from psychologist Peter McGraw, which states that humour occurs when something is wrong or threatening, a violation, but simultaneously okay or safe, benign. Family Guy constantly probes the line where violation overwhelms the benign, making it a perpetual case study in the limits of comedy. Perhaps Family Guy's most sophisticated weapon is its relentless self-awareness. Characters frequently comment on the show's poor ratings, its derivative nature, its reliance on cutaways, the inconsistency of their own personalities, and the flaws of its network, Fox. This is meta-humor, humor that derives from the text commenting on its own status as a constructed text. From a cognitive standpoint, this engages higher-order thinking. The viewer is not just processing a joke within the narrative, but a joke about the narrative framework itself. It's a comedic mise en RPM. When Brian and Stewie discuss the show's writing in a podcast episode, or when Peter accesses the DVD commentary of his own life, the show breaks the fourth wall not as a wink, but as a wrecking ball. This reflexivity serves a critical function. It inoculates the show against criticism. By openly acknowledging its own cheap tricks, lazy writing, and offensive content, it attempts to preempt detractors. The message becomes, we know it's stupid, that's the joke. It creates a complicit relationship with the audience. We're not being tricked by a dumb show, we're in on the critique of a dumb show. This transforms the viewing experience into a collaborative act of deconstruction, appealing to a generation steeped in irony and media literacy. The science of Family Guy is not purely conceptual, it is also deeply physical and sonic. The vocal performances, particularly by Seth MacFarlane, Peter, Stewie, Brian, Quagmire, and Alex Borstein, Lois, are masterclasses in comedic timing and caricature through sound. Peter's voice, a low, grating, nasal rumble. It's the sound of ignorant id, devoid of nuance. The laugh it provokes is often visceral, a reaction to its ugliness, and stupidity as a pure auditory stimulus. Stewie's voice, the precise, arch-received pronunciation of a classic Hollywood villain emerging from a baby. The incongruity between sound and image is a constant, foundational joke. Brian's voice, the smooth, faux sophisticated baritone. Its cadence is that of a mediocre jazz club philosopher, and the humour lies in the gap between its affected tone and the banality, or hypocrisy, of his words. The show also employs sonic punctuation, the sharp musical stings, the record scratches, the exaggerated sound effects, like the cool whip sound. These are auditory cues that signal joke here, guiding the viewer's response. They are the laugh track for the post-laugh track era, priming our brains for a comedic beat without the artificial cue of studio audience laughter. The science of Family Guy cannot be separated from its impact. It proved that this fragmented, reference-driven, shock-based style could achieve mass popularity, paving the way for shows like Robot Chicken, Rick and Morty, which adds sci-fi existentialism to the formula, and the entire genre of random internet humor. It demonstrated a new model. Narrative cohesion was optional. Consistency of comedic voice was paramount. The backlash against it is equally instructive. Critics from neuroscience and education have pointed to potential negative effects of such rapid-fire, low-context humor on developing brains and attention spans. The constant reinforcement of instant, disconnected gratification may rewire expectations for pacing and coherence. Furthermore, the show's treatment of its female character Meg as a universal punching bag, "Shut up, Meg," has been analysed as a sustained exercise in misogynistic humour, demonstrating how a benign violation can feel genuinely malignant to the group being targeted. The science behind Family Guy jokes reveals a show that is far more calculated than its random reputation suggests. It is a meticulously engineered comedic machine designed to exploit cognitive pathways through incongruity and surprise, leverage our collective cultural memory as a reference database, navigate social taboos through strategic offensiveness and meta-commentary, and adapt to a new media ecology of fragmented attention. It is not comedy rooted in character or story, but in association and dissociation. It associates disparate fragments of culture in absurd ways, and it dissociates humor from narrative consequence. Its laboratory is the American id, its tools are the remote control and the search engine, and its product is a uniquely modern, perpetually distracting, and undeniably potent form of laughter. Whether one considers it the degradation or the evolution of the animated sitcom, its methods are now a permanent part of the comedic lexicon. To watch Family Guy is to participate in a live experiment, one that tests what we find funny, why we find it funny, and how long we can laugh before asking ourselves if we should. In that tension between the reflexive guffaw and the subsequent critique lies its most enduring scientific truth.